Billy, there's an opinion flying around that the Red Wings have a goalie problem. Statistically speaking, there is some merit to this claim. Ville Husso, who is clearly considered the number one goalie for Detroit, is putting up some pretty bad numbers on the stat sheet. So a 3.61 goals per game, a .885 save percentage, and that's over the course of 10 games. So while the Red Wings clearly and obviously have plenty of issues that still need attention, is our goaltending from Husso on that list of concerns for you?
Yes, I feel like it would be arrogant to say that it isn't. I know that Husso has come up pretty clutch for us, and I often find myself being a goalie apologist, especially in Detroit. Shout out Jimmy Howard. I still like Jimmy Howard. But yeah, he just is not really making the saves that you need him to, that are like the easier chances. I know we talked about a clutch stat, and shout out to the Bally and Ken Daniels pointing out that there is an advanced stat that showed that he was doing very well on expected goals against and how many like saves he was making on those. So yeah, Husso has a clutch factor to him, but the fact remains is that if you've watched him over the last 2 weeks, that low glove is a problem, and teams know it. Teams are absolutely scouting it and talking about it, resulting in a breakaway where a player shoots from above the hash marks at that low glove because it's there. They showed a back angle to that breakaway, and I know we don't have the exact angle as the puck. We are a little off to the right, so it looks bigger to us, but it was still so big that you knew that that's just where he should shoot anyways. I like Husso. Maybe Husso's just cold right now. Maybe we need to just adopt a goalie can get hot, a goalie can get cold, and maybe just have a cold Husso right now.
That brings me to my next question then. And if you have an opinion on this, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, toss it down in the comments. We'd love to hear it. You currently have a backup goalie who is putting up a .933 save percentage and is only giving up 1.8 goals per game. At what point does James Reimer actually end up getting the nod for more challenging games and potentially take on more of a 1A starter role?
I think that should just happen now. Instead of looking at the season as a whole of like the 1A, 1B, I think we just need to follow the hot hand. It's why we also have Alex Lyon, and I know that he's been the backup the last couple games. Like, he's been the one who actually dressed. I think that, yeah, we need to start giving Reimer a couple more opportunities. I like what I've seen out of him. I think there are more opportunities to apologize for goals that go in against him or losses that occur against him. He went up against that Florida team and only let up 1 goal. And yeah, it wasn't great. There's no doubt about it, but that's hockey. Bad goals happen. I'm not blaming a game where we don't score a goal on our goalie whatsoever. So yeah, Reimer's hot. I think the split right now is 5 games to 10, right? For Reimer to Husso.
That is correct.
All right. Yeah, that's about what we expected going into the season. If that means 15 games into the year, you've got to start leaning a little more Reimer than Husso, go for it. Even if that means they end up 50-50 for the year, as long as we get the points. All of these games now matter just as much as they do at the end. I know I've said that many times, and I firmly believe that. So when you have someone better than someone else, you play them. You can't necessarily get too caught up in the, well, I don't like Reimer or I don't like Husso necessarily. You've got to just take the objective stand on, this is the better opportunity to win this game. Yeah, Reimer's the hot hand right now. We should just keep giving him the opportunities.
And I know when we signed Reimer, I was kind of there as well. There was a lot of people that were very anti-Reimer. I'm not going to say that we were anti-Reimer here. We had the videos to prove it. We have the free agency video to prove it, but we definitely weren't excited about it. We just recognized that we had a need at backup, and we made a couple signings, and it was going to see what worked out. And this is kind of what you hoped for, right? That one of your backups might surprise you. We've talked about how difficult it is to predict how a goalie is going to do and how they can go from being an award-winning goalie one year and then fall off and vice versa. So Reimer stepping up the way he is, not only on the saves he should make, but he is making clutch saves as well. This week he had a breakaway in overtime and came up with a big save. Like there's these moments that Reimer is coming up with. He's also getting those terrible, unfortunate goals against him. But the difference is it's happening to him and it's happening to Husso. But Reimer's also being consistent on the ones he should get, and that's kind of where the separation is right now. But I'm with you. If we had to play Boston again this weekend, I'm probably starting Reimer. This is right now. I think that's the guy. And I feel like that's who needs to get the higher percentage. But let's look back at the games this week. We started off against the Rangers, and if you just look at the score, you probably think, oh, 5-3 against a pretty solid Rangers team. Maybe one was an empty netter. Sounds like it was a decent game. No, it was not. The Rangers were up 5-0 at one point. It was bad, and it got to a point where Jonathan Quick, again, it was Jonathan Quick in net. We got to a point in the game where we were asking ourselves, is Quick about to shut out the Red Wings? But then we go and we scored a few goals, late in the third to kind of make it look more respectable. What happened?
Well, I really want to point out how bad of a performance it is that we were down 5-0 at some point with no Adam Fox, and as like you said, no Shesterkin. We did not face a fully loaded, ready to go Rangers. They were missing a Vezina caliber goalie and Norris winning defenseman. So the fact that at one point we were being outshot 12-1, I know that that's been like a common occurrence recently, and it feels like Red Wings fans might just become numb to that. That's awful. That's inexcusable. You cannot keep showing up to games like this. But more specifically on things that actually happened in the game, Trocheck is a Red Wings killer, just like Setaguchi was in the past. This guy, whether he was with the Panthers or not, he's just always killed us. He had 2 goals in this game. The first one, Husso probably should have had it. I know during our live watch along, we gave a lot of credit to Trocheck on that shot. Looks like it kind of just beat Husso between the elbow and the post, which that can't happen. That goal shouldn't be happening from that angle like that. But he also had a really nice one-timer in the slot. Panarin had a shot from a very similar spot. And I don't know how teams keep getting opportunities like this against us. It's, again, just something that's inexcusable. Kreider had that tipped in goal on the power play. Their power play looked deadly. It actually looked like they had threats all over the place, and that's without an Adam Fox quarterbacking the entire thing. And I know in our live watch along that there were some people that criticized Mata pretty harshly on the Panarin goal. And yeah, if you just kind of watch just the highlights of it, it's pretty egregious. It looks really bad. But I think that was a coaching strategy mid-game to simply try something different, because our defensemen were just throwing the puck up the boards the entire game. We weren't possessing and trying to make anything happen. I think Mata was trying to possess and make something happen. All just backfired in his face. Wonderful opportunity for the Rangers. Hard to blame Husso on a couple of those, but man, their power play looks good and our power play looked bad.
If you are looking for a positive, the one thing that I can find is that the 3 goals that we ended up getting, you got that from Raz, Kostin, and Kopp. These are not guys that you're counting on every night to score goals. So really, you're getting some sort of momentum. You're getting some sort of offense from those guys, which means that with the game ending 5-3, you just needed your goal scorers to kind of show up, and you're at least at minimum down by 1 going into that. Maybe you score at least 1 more goal. But if your top line, your top 2 lines produce a little bit more collectively, even giving up 5 goals, you could have still been in this. So it is kind of nice to see that, when the going got tough, your 4th line stepped up and found ways to put the puck in the net. Unfortunately, and this has kind of been a trend a little bit, the power play has slowed down. Your goal scorers have slowed down, and that's going to hurt you in a game that you're going to go down 5-0 to kick off the game.
Yep. And you just spoke to something I thought would be the big, difference maker for this team versus other teams looking to make the playoffs. I really trusted in our depth. And this was one of the first games that you really kind of saw out of our 4th line, which kind of translates a little bit into the future games we have going on.
Speaking of future games, Canadiens came to town, and I mean, statistically speaking, it was a little better. What do you think of that one?
Don't give them that credit. I'll stop
we didn't
you
go down
right then and there.
5-0.
You're right. We didn't go down 5-0, but I'm telling you again, it's another one of those. If you look at the stat sheet, sure, we looked better. We weren't getting outshot 12-1. We were out shooting, but we were shooting from like literally anywhere. I know they had a young goalie. I believe he's a rookie. He was looking to play maybe his 2nd game ever. His first game was pretty bad. His stats are pretty brutal. And I know that the mentality is get pucks on net, test him. Well, unfortunately, our tests were just floaters, wrist shots from the top of the circles, the easiest saves that he could possibly ask for. So I think you did the complete opposite. I think you built up his confidence in that game because he looked solid. He actually looked like a fine NHL goalie. And I refuse to give like that start too much credit because I was so frustrated. I know that I talk about it often, but like we just shoot at goalies and we let them get the easiest of saves. But we can talk again about things, it statistically happened in this game. That first goal for Montreal is so unlucky. Cider getting clipped by a Canadian exiting the zone because they went in too soon. Like, I don't know. Like, it feels like it should have been a call, but I understand why it wasn't. It looked like Cider just caught an edge. So if the ref isn't directly looking at that, I get it. And what's even less fortunate is that the only guy that we had back at that point for a 2-on-1 is DeBrincat. I'm not looking to criticize DeBrincat too hard for not understanding how to handle a 2-on-1 as a defenseman in the NHL. It's a very difficult task. The only thing I would say is that completely selling out your body very early in the development of the play, not what you should be doing. But Matheson gets a wonderful opportunity right there in the slot, snipes Reimer over the blocker. Hard to blame him. Hard to blame Reimer on that one. I don't know. Just this entire game, it felt like we should have been the better team, but we weren't.
Okay, I'll try again. Another positive for this one. Potential.
I'm sensing something here with how you and I are attacking these.
I mean, there's got to be something.
Yeah.
You got to find something good that you could point at. Otherwise, it's not. It couldn't be that bad. But the fourth line again stepped up, and like we said in the previous game, when the scorers weren't scoring, the fourth line stepped up again, and it happened in the Canadiens game.
Yep, and like I said, we need it. We need them to be able to do stuff like that. Raz finally being able to drive the net even a little bit, and they don't ask how, they ask how many. So at the end of the season, when we say that Fisher had 4 goals on the year, we won't remember how this one went in. But I do want to give some very quick credit to Comfer. I personally believe that he may be our most consistent player of the year so far. Like through all the highs and lows of anything, I think I just trust him and I just like him on the roster no matter what. But looking into overtime, Josh, our strategy still sucks. I don't know what we're doing. Why are we shooting when we're shooting?
I think the possession got better. The possession part of the strategy got better. I didn't feel like we weren't okay. We've changed the shots. It seems like we're taking. We're holding the possession more. Like we're completely willing to leave the zone, which I think it was Ken that I think he thought there was someone there, and it looked like a pass just went to no one. But really, I think it was just sending the puck out. I believe it was Cider just corral it and reset, because possession is what's key in overtime. And the shots I think used to be taking were the wide angle shots that would end up wrapping around and sending a 2-on-1 the other way. And this time it's more head-on shots. And I'm going to give credit here because they did have some really good OT shots, but they mixed in a few where it's like you're just asking for your turn with the puck to be over.
Yep.
Like you're not going to score. I mean, you could. It's not saying none of these shots could go in, but when you're in 3-on-3 overtime, the ability to create high potential situations is much easier than it is in 5-on-5. So why take that shot when you can just play the puck possession game, knowing there is a much higher chance? It's weird. I'm not going to get too on that because I'm sure they could go back and be like, well, obviously we didn't want to do that. So I'm not going to act like him taking that shot was the strategy. It could be one player making an iffy mistake that I'm sure he could take back.
Ben Schrott going in on a 1-on-2, Josh, and trying to shoot it through a defenseman's legs. It's awful. You can't do that.
I get it, but my point is that doesn't mean that was the strategy. That means that Schrott or whoever takes the shot, they messed it up. Like I refuse to believe that was the strategy written on the board, but I'm more concerned with the turnover. I'm more concerned like that was like getting kind of sloppy with the passes when you have that much room to work with. That's inexcusable. Those are the ones that ends games, that gives up a point. But in this case, it did not. We talked about it earlier. Reimer was really clutch in that before trying to do some gamesmanship. And listen, I'm for it. He did it too long.
Yeah.
He grabbed the stick. He could have gotten out of that situation without taking a penalty. If you didn't see it, Reimer fell on, who was it? Do you remember?
Caulfield. Bull Caulfield.
He fell on Caulfield's stick while the puck was heading the other way. So the wings were breaking out and heading the other way. And Reimer kind of fell on his stick because they collided a little bit. And Reimer decided to take his glove hand and grab the stick, which for a split second, fine.
Yep.
Do that, let go and fall. And the ref's not going to call that. And you've still done what you meant to do. You kept the back checker back and you gave your guys a chance. He held onto that stick. I think he thought Caulfield was going to let go of the stick and it was going to look like he fell. But props to Caulfield. He held onto that and just made Reimer look silly, like he's just dangling and holding onto a stick. It looked bad. It was a bad penalty. It ended up leading to a goal. Yeah, I still have issues with overtime as well. I'm not as upset with the offensive strategy. There were a couple bad shots, but there were a few much better opportunities, and the possession was at least improved. Still lost though. So, I mean, it's still got room to grow. We did finish on a high note this week.
Yes, we did. It felt very good.
So shout out to those of you who went to the watch along stream. It was a good time, especially early, because we've talked about for a while about slow starts for the Red Wings. And when we played the Blue Jackets, we came out hot. The early strategy was apparently cause some chaos behind the net.
Yeah.
The first 2 goals came from some weird, like Reimer with the quick wrap behind the net, and then another one where the puck got thrown out in front to Fabry in front of the net. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if that's a strategy or if that's just a pure coincidence. It could have been, but the Wings did end up winning against the Blue Jackets 5-4, and they ended up winning this game probably heavily due to this was one of the best starts they've had to a game in a long time.
Yes, you can give them all the credit on this one. In against what I said with the Montreal game, yes, this one was so much better, and I don't mean that just by the puck went in the net. You could actually see that we were causing chaos in front of the net, something I've been asking for a while, and we saw that change this game with our power play. Thank God. We ended up putting Perron in front. There was another power play where Larkin was actually the one causing chaos in front. I'm even asking for Raz or Costin to get an opportunity out there and be in front. What I've seen out of Raz in front of the net, I don't like, but it's not that difficult to teach. Like, ask Thomas Holmstrom. I bet he would tell you that he had the easiest job in the world. I also want to talk about just the general puck luck. It felt like we had those Joe Louis boards back, huh? On the Wallman goal.
How funny would it be if they whatever they used to, they just kind of did it and didn't tell anyone, and suddenly we start banking them off the backboards?
Yeah, like Nick Lidstrom comes down. He's like, hey, you guys know that we have that in the boards. Wallman's like, hold up, what? I can do that. But even just looking at the goal for Fantilli, I'm going to give him credit for the hand eye was pretty sick, but I don't know how it happens. It looks like the first shot was like 4 feet high, 4 feet wide, and somehow it still just bounces back out the other way. Fantilli knocks it out of the air, goes between Husso's legs. He's, going full Beyblade in the net, spinning around, and ends up in the net. It's really difficult to blame Husso in those situations. It's very difficult. I know what we said at the start, but man, it felt good to get the puck luck back a little bit.
We flip roles when it comes to goalies. I'm more willing to hit the goalie, but you're like, well, hold on now. Let's give the guy a chance.
Yeah. It felt really good to see Cat finally get a goal again. That was a wonderful pass by Petrie.
That was great.
Yes.
Do you remember who passed it to Petrie?
I believe it was a wraparound from maybe Kopp.
I have no idea. I was going to say either Fisher or Valane. I couldn't remember, but it was a quick pass to Petrie. Petrie, without any hesitation, sending up to DeBrincat, who had just arrived to his spot. There was no reacting to that, and it was a quick shot from DeBrincat. That was a great pass, great goal, and good. I'm sure that felt good for DeBrincat to get that little bit of a monkey off his back of just not being able to. He was going on a drought. I think just before that, they had just showed on Bally that his stats in the first 7 games, then he was goalless in like 7 games. So coming out and scoring there, that had to feel good. And then Sprong with a solid goal.
Finally, we get to cheer for our guy again, someone we hyped up super hard this offseason. But I will say that it's relatively fortunate. We had like a decent forecheck on the play, but it's something that I've criticized the Red Wings for all season is an inability to break out. And guess what? The Blue Jackets completely messed up. A breakout. They put it off their own guy's skate, goes back to Costin. Beautiful, simple little pass over to Sprong, takes it, hits a goalie moving. Wonderful shot. Moments like that you have to capitalize on, right? When you can capitalize on someone else's mistakes instead of just feeling like it's always the other way against us, felt really, really good.
And you notice the difference here that I just kind of thought of this when we're looking at our note sheet here, is that what did I say about the Rangers game? Is that our fourth liner showed up, our goal scorers didn't. And now that I'm looking at this Blue Jackets game, what you saw there could have been what you saw in New York. I
Mhm.
mean, in this one, you had your cat goal, you had a Sprong goal, like you had, and I think it was Raymond that got the first one, right?
Yep.
So you had your goal scorers score, and even though you gave up 4 goals, you could have won that game. So I truly believe that the result that you saw with that Blue Jacket game, that could have been your Ranger game, but our goal scorers just could not. And speaking of having goal scorers, something I'm really noticing that it feels good as a Wings fan because you haven't seen this a lot in previous years. We have guys that can just shoot the puck. Like they have
Yes.
flaws. They have flaws. Sprong, flaws. Got plenty of them. To brink it defensively, flaws. Nice to have some guys that can just rip it.
Yeah.
And it so that way when they are in those situations where the other team makes a mistake or they get fed a beautiful pass by someone, they can rip it and it gives us a good shot. And I think that's where a lot of these wins are kind of coming from. Boston one included. You just got guys that can score, and it's making a difference. And it's honestly having guys that can shoot, other factors as well, but having guys that can shoot, a big contributor to why the Wings are still, as of this recording, they're third in their division, and that's in a division where there's there's a 4-point difference between seventh and second. So it is so close, and they're still hanging up there. By the way, the Wings are still the only team to hand Boston their only regulation loss. So we'll hang our hat on that for as long as we can. But okay, it's time to look forward. Get your keyboards ready at home. Let's hear some predictions. We are going to Sweden for 2 games this week. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do any watch alongs because they're both going to be at like 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're kicking this one off against the 6-7 Senators, who are currently last in the division. I think they might even be
Surprising.
last in the conference.
Last in the entire
They're second.
conference.
Well, they're second to last in the conference because we beat the Jackets. So
Oh, you guys are welcome. Rivals helping rivals, I guess.
what's the expectation? We played him already once. We liked what we saw. Facing him again in Sweden. What are you thinking?
I am thinking they are going to come out even more physical than they had before on us. I think that they kind of have an entire mess of an organization right now. It's kind of really tough to watch from an outside perspective. I know that you and I have built a relationship with a couple people who are very, very loyal to that organization. And I would find it very difficult to continue to support them with the level of mess ups that they have with that Dodonov no movement clause mess up. That's like decade. I don't know if another organization has really messed up like that on the front office end in such a long time. That's so bad. But I think that they're going to continue to perform offensively. They have a positive 6-goal differential, and they're second to last in the conference. That's crazy. When you look at the end of season stats and who makes the playoffs or who doesn't, goal differential is probably the most, I don't know, like correlating to making the playoffs or not. I think there was one team last year and it was Calgary who didn't. So seeing that down there is absolutely crazy. It's the same as us, and we're third in the division, tied for third.
I'm not usually sample size guy. I like to look at things for what they are, even in the short term. But when it comes to goal differential, I don't look too much into it early in the season because it only takes one game where you just blew someone out to complete. Like that's a stat that tells no lies once you get further into the season because there's just too much. You've lost too many or won too many to be able to lie in that stat column. So I know they had at least one game where they just blew one team out. I don't remember who it was.
Okay.
But so that probably had something to do with it. Only 12 games in, 13 games in. So, I mean, if they imagine holding that later in the season, having a positive, but you're like whenever you win by a lot, but then you lose. That's crazy.
Their last 3 that I just want to point out: 6-3 win over Toronto, 2-5 loss to the Canucks, and a 4-1 win over Calgary. In those games, directly correlating it, was Korpisalo playing well in their wins and Forsberg playing bad in their loss. I don't think there's a chance that we're going to see Forsberg over in Sweden against us. So I'm expecting to see Korpisalo, and he could be pretty hot right now. I've seen a lot of good talk about his recent performance, and I think that he may have been the biggest thing to point at as to why we beat them before. I still believe that the Red Wings' depth is the big difference in this matchup. I think our top line can compete with their top line. I don't think they can out-physical them by any means. I think Brady Tkachuk is a completely different kind of monster when these two teams play. We don't really have anyone that can match up with him. So I will give their top line all the credit in the world for having that edge, but I think we beat them. I think if we continue to see what our fourth line just did in these last few games, I think that they can absolutely take advantage of Ottawa's depth, and I think we come out of this with a win.
I'm with you. I think we're going to win this one. I think I think this is going to be the one where DeBrincat scores on his old team, because not in Ottawa yet. That'll be later. So I think DeBrincat's going to score. I think the Wings are going to look good. And you're saying you'd give Husso the game?
Yes, I would give Husso that start. I think that if there's a team that we're likely to score more goals against and can give that more support to, that I think one of the goalie needs it more than the other, it would be this one. So yeah, I say give Husso the game against the Senators. I think he played decent against them last time.
I'm going to agree with you on starting Husso merely because they have back-to-back games, and you're not going to want to start the same goalie for both of those games, considering the next game is against the Maple Leafs. Having Reimer in that game could be interesting. It's a nice little story, and he's been your hotter goalie. I want my hotter goalie in that Leafs game personally, but for the Senators game, I'm with you. I think we're winning that one. Mark it as a dub. Let us know what you think. Make your prediction, and that brings us to the very next day, taking on the Toronto Maple.
I hate that we play them the very next day. Like, this is going to be the Leafs' first game. They're 8-5-2. Like, this is their first game over in Sweden. How do we just have to do that the very next day? It doesn't feel right.
The scheduling on that is interesting, but I'm guessing there's little, when you're cramming stuff overseas and you're making these events, there's probably very little wiggle room, and you just kind of have to make it work. So I think we're getting screwed there. I wish you could flip the games. If we're going to play back to back, I'd rather at that point play the Senators second. 8-5-2 are the Maple Leafs behind the Red Wings in the standings. I might add.
I think it's because of the goals against, correct?
Yeah, it is. We're tied across the board. Same game, same wins, same losses, same OT losses. It's all the same. Actually, I didn't think about this, but isn't that almost more surprising that we have the goal differential tiebreaker over the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yes. I mean, it's because of our goaltending, or like our goals against, our defense, which I believe ours is better than them in. I'm impressed that our goals are the same. So looking at their last three games, a 5-2 win over Vancouver, a 5-4 shootout win over Calgary, and a 3-6 loss against Ottawa. And I believe that we're going to be facing Samsonov, who had a last good outing. And I would like to see him go up against Reimer. I know you said that you wanted to be interesting versus old team. I know he's had a couple of those with like the Hurricanes and the Sharks since leaving, but this is the Detroit versus Toronto. They want to see him fail, and bringing him inside of their own division. Yeah, let's beat him.
So this is going to be a test. It's going to be a test, especially coming off of a game. And like you said, they're going to be fresh. You're going against a team that is supposed to be known for their offense, ability to score, and then everything behind them doesn't matter because they scored 7. That's supposed to be if you're putting all your money in that, they're supposed to be a team that can score a ton on you. Do you think Reimer can step up to that?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do.
I'm with you. And if we're gonna jump into predictions, I'm going big here. I'm saying the Wings are gonna win. I think Hall's gonna get at least 1 point.
That would be nice.
I think Justin Hall is going to get 1 point. I think he's going to look solid. And there's no reason to think he couldn't. It's not like, oh, Hall's been bad all year. Like, Hall's been solid, and anyone who says otherwise is just wrong. I'm sorry. This is not subjective. For at least at the bare minimum, how bad he was laid out and expected to be, expected in quotes. Everyone's saying this is a brutal signing. It hasn't been. Everything that we said was true, that he was going to be put into a situation where he doesn't need to be top D man, and he is thriving in that role. And I didn't even, you know what? I'm going to lead into this hoping I'm right before I even check it. Yep. Still up there, tied. He's second on the team in plus minus still. So he's clearly not the guy out there on defense that is consistently doing bad. You want to know who he's behind? Ben Sherratt. So put that on your list. So anyone who's got complaints about Hall and Sherratt, again, plus minus, a terrible stat for comparing players across different teams, but a pretty good way to look at who on your team is out there when you're scoring goals and when you're not. Hall is out there when we score, and he's clearly not out there a ton when we're scoring on. He's going to get a point in that game. The Wings are going to win both of those games, and we're going to feel really good going into next weekend.
So, I know this entire time you've been sharing positive stuff about the Wings, and I've been kind of being very critical through each game. We're not doing it this time. The Red Wings are going to win this game. I have a feeling in my gut. I know all the logic says that, Toronto's going to be able to come out and just pour goals on you. Guess what? The Red Wings can do it this year too. And guess who's better defensively? And guess who has better goaltending right now? Us.
Boston. Oh. Okay, we're both right. Yes. I thought you were going a different way. I thought you were saying, who's better than the Maple Leafs? Boston. Guess who beat Boston and is the only team to do it in regulation? The Detroit Red Wings. Hey, but that's right. We just hit 2 points at the same time. Yes. If we can do that to Boston, who again, because you said that they're expected to score a ton on you. Everyone would have expected that Boston is going to squat over the Red Wings in that game, and they didn't. They came out, they matched them, they scored more, and they can do that against the Leafs, who have worse goaltending and worse defense than Boston does. Market 2-0 this week going into Sweden.
Real quick. Anything else? I want this to be the thing that really sways everyone's opinions, because we really got to try to convince some people here, Josh, that we're going to go out and we're going to win this game. Think about it. Sweden has done us very well. We're going to do Sweden very well. How can you argue?
I wasn't going to.
I know. I'm saying it to you right now. Listen to this video. Listen to this podcast. However you're getting it. How could you possibly argue that exact point?
Yeah, those of you listening on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the like button. Surprisingly, it helps a ton on YouTube. We've seen the difference.
Yes.
So those of you who want to keep supporting us, hit that like button. We really do appreciate it. Toss a comment down below on any of your thoughts and anything you saw today. Shout out to our YouTube members who've been supporting the channel, shown down below. Really appreciate you guys. We will not have a watch along this week because the games are at 2, but don't worry. We got you Thanksgiving Eve. It's going to be a good one when we get to that, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. See you in the next one.